Alright, so today is Thanksgiving Day, the 28th of November, 2024, and I am driving to Los Angeles from Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I live now. I lived in Los Angeles for the first 30 years of my life on this planet, and now I've lived in the greater Phoenix area for about 5 years. First couple of years I lived in Tempe, which is close to, or in fact is where Arizona State University is, and now I'm in the South Scottsdale area. And what I wanted to talk about today is often a very common theme that you hear people talking about online, even offline, in person, is this idea or question of, should you move to Arizona from California? And I want to answer that based on my own perspective, given that I've lived in Arizona for the past 5 years. The short answer is yes, I would suggest it. And there are many reasons for that. Right off the top of my head, because this is something that I'm doing from an impromptu standpoint. This video, I mean. The first thing that I noticed when I first moved to Phoenix, even right off the freeway, especially when it comes to the east side of Phoenix, which is basically where I live, is how much cleaner it is compared to Los Angeles. It is much cleaner than LA, especially the east side, places like Scottsdale, Chandler, Gilbert, North Scottsdale, Central Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, these types of areas in Phoenix. Much cleaner, very well kept roads, very easy to get around. A night and day of a difference in terms of traffic. Everybody always likes to complain about the traffic in LA, how even 10 miles, driving 10 miles in LA could easily take 45 minutes or an hour, even at 1 in the morning, which in my experience has not really been the case in Phoenix. So the roads are better kept, much less traffic. The weather is very similar to Southern California or LA weather. It does get hotter, much hotter in the summertime, around July, August, September, and I would say about half of October. And every year, what I notice is that around mid-October is when the temperature suddenly drops. Like literally the day before, you would wake up in the morning around 7 in the morning and it'd already be in the mid-80s. And then the following day, it's now in the 50s when you wake up. So the weather is something that a lot of people talk about. They always talk about how, is it going to be way too hot? Am I going to have heat strokes? I don't think the weather is all too bad, but then again, my whole life I've always preferred sunny and hot weather over cold weather. I'm not a big fan of cold weather because I just like to wear one layer, and usually a t-shirt is enough for me. Now, that being the case, if you do move to Phoenix, you do want to make sure that you have a great HVAC system or air conditioning system in whatever home, apartment, or condo that you move into, because if your system were to go out, that can be a bit of a nightmare, especially in the summertime, or mostly in the summertime. So you want to make sure that you have a good HVAC system, because in fact, this past summer, my HVAC system did go out. It was not cooling my place And it wouldn't be uncommon for the temperature inside my place to be around 95, even close to 100 degrees, until the HVAC technician came over and actually repaired the HVAC system. It was under warranty, and it had an issue with its compressor, so the compressor had to be replaced, which was done, and now it's fine. So you want to make sure that if you're going to move to Phoenix, your HVAC system works and works properly, especially for the summertime, because if that system were to go out in the summertime, that is definitely not fun at all. So way less traffic, much cleaner, weather is very similar, except in the summertime it does get hotter, easier to get around. What else can I talk about with regards to Phoenix or Arizona? You're going to save a lot of money on state income taxes. In California, the state income tax goes all the way up to about 13% or so. In Arizona, the previous governor put in a flat tax of about 2.5%, which means that regardless of how much money you actually make, you pay 2.5% on your income, which is way different than paying 13%, up to 13% or so in California. So you save a lot of money, and in fact, I think it's one of the lowest state income taxes in all of America. The next thing that people may be concerned about or want to question is the safety. Once again, I'll say that you do have some parts of Phoenix that are not so great. I'm not a big fan of the west side of Phoenix. I prefer the east side of Phoenix. But when it comes to safety, I think we have better laws that allow you to protect yourself. I mean, this is a constitutional carry state, so if you're going to carry a weapon, you can do so. Whereas in places like California, that's a bit harder to do in terms of getting, for example, a concealed carry permit so that you can defend yourself. And the other thing is with LA, especially, if you're ever on Nextdoor, all the time I see stories from people that post on Nextdoor, which is basically like Facebook but for your neighborhood, about how they got burglarized in the middle of the night or even during the day. And you also hear about situations where if the homeowner tried to defend themselves against the burglar, they got into trouble with the law. So, which doesn't make sense to me, but that's California for you. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is that a lot of people have this misconception that Arizona is just a giant desert, which is really not true. I mean, certain parts of Arizona, you do get 4 seasons, such as Flagstaff, which I have not yet been to, which is around where the Grand Canyon is, as well as Prescott, I believe, gets 4 seasons as well. So the northern part of Arizona has cold weather and even snow as well, which you're not really going to see in the southern part or in Phoenix, Arizona. So that's something to keep in mind. From the standpoint of things to do, I mean, you have no shortage of hiking spots, whether it's in Phoenix or even other parts of Arizona. You have, for example, Sedona, where you have the Red Rocks, a very popular vacation destination. I've been there a bunch of times. It's only about an hour and a half away from me. My phone keeps moving in this direction. It's only about an hour and a half from me, which I'd recommend checking out if you get a chance, even from California. And what else can I tell you? So yeah, you have lots of mountains. Phoenix is known for, especially Scottsdale, is known for having a lot of different areas to go golfing. Golfing is very popular out here. When the weather cools down around October, so you have a bunch of different festivals out here. You've got the Italian festival. In January, you have the Barrett Jackson auto show or auto auction, which happens every year around January. In fact, this year it happened in October as well, for the first time, I believe. You also have the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, one of the biggest golf games in January. I believe that's mid-January, if I'm not mistaken. And then in March, you have nearly an entire month of spring training. So there is a lot to do out here. And a lot of the things you have in LA, you have here. Maybe not as much variety in terms of the restaurants, but it's definitely becoming much more popular in terms of having different food options to choose from. I mean, the area that I live in Scottsdale, you have quite a few Italian restaurants. You do have Mexican restaurants. We just got a Velvet Taco in downtown Scottsdale, which was pretty awesome to see. The first time I saw Velvet Taco was actually in Dallas, Texas, when I went a few years ago. But yeah, that's Arizona. So I think overall, it's going to be cheaper. You're paying less in state income taxes. If you're going to start a business, it's a much more business-friendly state. There's less paperwork involved. I think in California, if you have an LLC or an S corporation, or you start one of those, you got to pay $800 a year, regardless of whether your company actually makes money or not. At the time of making this video, I don't think we have any of that. I believe it costs about, if I'm not mistaken, $50 or so to set up an LLC in Arizona. So it's definitely much cheaper out here. And of course, the property, it did get a lot more expensive in the past few years, especially after COVID. But you can still find condos and even houses for $300,000, $350,000, $400,000, which is probably unheard of in LA. So cheaper, more business friendly, great weather, easier to get around, less traffic, easier to protect yourself in terms of gun laws. I mean, Arizona is basically, or not basically, it is a sanctuary state for the Second Amendment, which is something that the previous governor, Governor Ducey, put into effect when he was governor, which is awesome. And yeah, that's pretty much it. What else can I say about Arizona? I mean, yeah, it's a less densely populated state, so you almost feel a bit freer because there's just less people. In LA, it's so densely populated, which is part of the reason why there is so much traffic there. I mean, I've been here, like I said, 5 years, and this is now home for me. I mean, if I didn't have family in LA, I would honestly never even want to go back to visit LA. Just being honest. And in fact, what's interesting about Phoenix, a lot of the people that I've met out here that live in Phoenix, when they travel or they go on vacation to California, what I've noticed is rarely do they say they went to LA. In most cases, they say they went to San Diego, because I think San Diego has a similar vibe to Phoenix, especially the east side, like Scottsdale. And by the way, Scottsdale, a lot of people also compare Scottsdale to Palm Springs, especially when you go past, say, a street called Indian School. So yeah, Hope you got value out of this video. Hope you learned a few things about Phoenix or Arizona. And if you have any specific questions about moving to Arizona or moving to Phoenix, comment below. I'd be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you very much.